1510 WMEX Quincy, Boston, and 101.1 FM W266DQ Quincy.
WMEX Quincy, Boston. Streaming at WMEXBoston.com. And on your smart speaker, just say play WMEX.
The greatest hits of all time are back. This is the all-new WMEX.
WMEX Boston.
Chris Shea's Financial Puzzle Plan is a show dedicated to helping you understand your financial path and the puzzle pieces that build it. Join us each week as Chris explores various topics in the financial industry with his guests and your calls at 781-834-9639. Now here's your host, Chris Shea of BPS Financial Services.
Well, thank you, Ben. Happy Tuesday evening, everybody. It's great to be here on the second Tuesday of the month. And for those of you that have been paying attention so far, that means that it is the other Ben from Stiles Law. We're going to be talking about the fun topic, hopefully, if you guys call in. But if not, we'll do it on estate planning. So, Ben, thank you for making it here on time today.
My pleasure. I'm glad I could be here.
The world is a wonderful place around this time of year because everyone's in a rush to get someplace, which means nobody's going anywhere fast.
That is true. And
Well
every time
said.
I'm sitting in traffic, I'm like, where are all these people going? Not realizing that I'm also going somewhere and blocking up the road for everyone else.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a challenging time, even though it's the holiday season, and I understand that more than most, seeing as my daughter and I put up all of our holiday lights this year. And I do say holiday lights because my dad was Irish Catholic and my mom was Jewish, so I have all of the Christmas stuff up. And right now we have two menorahs at my house. One is inside with the actual candles that we light and try not to burn down the house. And
Very key.
the other one's one of those candle ones that's in the window, so that you drive by, you got the lights on the banister, lights on that are all green and red, and then you got this menorah in the window with the multicolored lights, and people look and go, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're just holidays."
Yeah, my kids are very jealous of their cousins. They my niece and nephew, they celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas, and my kids are like, "What? They get all these extra presents? We don't get all those?" And it's they're very jealous.
Try to explain that one. Wait, we got one night, they get 8? How does that work?
Yeah, well, I was on a call today with someone, and they're celebrating the holidays right now and having some deep fried latkes every night.
Ooh.
And he said, in 5 days, I've put on 5 pounds.
But it was delicious the whole time.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do." And I was like, it's time to just sucker it up through the next couple of days and then modify your eating habits again to what you actually want to get done in terms of the waistline. But
Just remember that the applesauce that goes with the latkes is a vegetable, technically.
yes, it is, and it's a delicious one. And no, but it's all good, right? Because people always, when I was growing up, so again, my parents got married in '67. So when they got married 50 plus years ago, it was not the way it is today. There was a great deal of consternation on both sides of the marriage of the two religions together and how it was going to work. And invariably it worked out, I think, pretty much okay. My parents, neither one of them were super religious, but they introduced us to everything. And when I was in my 30s, I did this thing and had to ask my parents some tough questions about my upbringing and figure out some stuff. And so I asked my dad, I said, "You're Christian, Mom was Irish Catholic. I was raised with nothing and everything." And he goes, "Well, me and your mom, we couldn't really agree upon anything. So we just figured we'd let you figure it out, and it was easier this way. If we figured if you got married, it'd be easier for you to convert.
I was really hoping you were going to say, well, we're this, we're that. So we just said, to heck with it, right?
No, that was logic. And who can argue with that, right? Like, hey, you can convert easier. You're truthfully and factual on that one, Dad. Can't argue with that 180 in any way, shape, or form.
So do you think that your experience with kind of having a foot in both of those religions, do you think that has impacted your financial advising career and the way that you interact with clients?
I think it impacts the way I interact with anyone. Simply because when you, like, I'd go with my Jewish grandparents to the Catskills in the summertime, and Christopher is not normally a name in the Jewish society, and I know I've got a face for radio and you can't see me right now, but I have reasonably darker skin and I tan very well, so I would look whatever Jewish is supposed to look like. I'd kind of look like my grandparents.
So what you're saying is absolutely no scotch in there.
Yes. And but my dad was very, very, very pale, the Irish side. And they'd come up and be like, oh, what a cute little boy, in the New York accent. And they're like, what's his name? Christopher. Oy vey! like it was like getting stabbed in the heart. But it just allowed me to be open to the fact that people were just different. And neither one was right or wrong. It just came down to a matter of belief. And I think that open-mindedness has helped me in everything in my walk of life. Because I meet people and they're like, I'm this. And I'm like, okay, great. And they kind of look at me like, I'm like, look, I'm going to judge you one way or the other. But I'm not going to, as long as you got a reason and you believe in it, okay, great. But I'm not going to hold it against you because you have a particular point of view on something, unless I think it's completely insane. But as far as religions go, like, there's so many religions out there that you can have your belief, just be accepting of other people, because we realistically, none of us know what the heck the right answer is.
That's right.
It's one of the coolest parts of my job. I get to meet people from every walk of life, different religions, different family statuses, and often people, I find they're trying to apologize, or they're trying to say, well, sorry, this is messy, or you might be judging me because of this thing. And I say, I don't bring any judgments to the table, not my job to judge. And in fact, it's one of my favorite things that I get to meet really interesting people that are different.
And it opens up your mind and your eyes to different things.
Absolutely.
Right. And I always like when people will say to me, oh, I'm a disaster. I said, welcome to being a human being.
Yeah, right. I haven't met anybody who isn't yet. Don't worry.
That's right.
Right.
Myself included.
And then the other one, which I'm sure you get when the estate planning stuff comes up, is this is all really emotional to me.
Get that all the time.
And I say, again, welcome to being a human being. And people look at me like I'm crazy. I go, look, and then I go into, I don't know if we've had this conversation, but what's your definition of money? Seriously, what's your definition of money? How would you define money?
I guess at its most basic level, it's stuff that allows you to get other stuff.
That's right.
So what about you, Ben? Ben too.
Other Ben.
My brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
That's right. We have two Bens on 1510 right now. That's never happened. Actually, no, it did. You were here
last time.
Before.
Yep.
Yes. I would say probably money has got. Without an actual using the term in the definition, which I know we all can't stand, I would say money is got to be the asset in which you use to acquire other said assets. And it's basically what the other Ben just said. So, I'm hoping we're kind of right here.
There's no right or wrong answer, right? Again, this is about perspective. But I've had a little bit of time to think about this. And my definition of money is it's a medium by which you're able to purchase your current and future needs, wants, wishes, and desires. And if you think about that, if you take away the needs, which is, your shelter, your food, the wants, wishes, and desires, that's all emotional stuff. So when people tell me that they're emotional about their money, I say, you should be, because it symbolizes the way in which you're going to consume and make your life fulfilled and happy.
That's right. And people get emotional about estate planning as well, because it's directly tied to what are they leaving for their family? How are they caring for their family? It's those same needs, wishes, and desires, but on a longer time frame.
And it's definitely more of a wish and desire when it comes to estate planning. I think we talked about my grandmother who had dementia, and at the end of her life, she had the will. I was in my 20s, so I didn't have anything to do with that. If I did, it probably would have turned out about the same. But the point of it was that I was going to get to is she had dementia, so she was half the time I'd come and visit her, she'd swear at me. The half time she'd love me. It was fantastic. But one of her lucid times, we were talking, and she's like, I miss my husband. Her husband of 52 years had died like 8 years before. And I said, Graham, it's okay to go and visit your husband. We're going to be all right without you. And she looked at me and said, you are? I said, yeah, like I live in New Orleans right now. I'm back visiting, but I've got my own life. Like, and when I do come and visit you, I don't like getting sworn at half the time. And she laughed and said, I do? And I said, yeah, you do. And she goes, oh my God, oy vey. So it was a Jewish grandmother. And then she swore at me some more for telling her that. But like within a month later, she passed away. She was looking for the okay from us that we're going to be fine. We're going to be able to stay on without her, and we weren't going to fall apart. And I know that, again, you probably see this again more than I, but I think that's more of a thing with the matriarch than the patriarch. Do you find that?
Yes and no. I've definitely seen couples where the husband takes the position where he's the protector. He's going to take care of his wife, especially if she's ill. And I very much believe that dynamic keeps the husband living. But it happens both ways. There's oftentimes a caretaker, and that person probably, I'm not a doctor, I don't pretend to be one, but probably lives past their expiration date just because they have a purpose and they're worried about what would happen if they're not there.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the couple. I'm talking about when one of the spouses passes away.
Yep.
The female is more likely to care for the flock of her children and grandchildren than the father, who's less likely to be as concerned about their well-being and kind of caring for them. That's what I was kind of asking about.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So especially a lot of my experience with that has been when there is a couple that's coming in, there's two different perspectives. And I'm going to generalize, obviously everyone's different, but in general, a lot of the time the matriarch is saying, how do we keep the kids so that they're close? How do we make sure that this money doesn't rip the family apart? How do we make sure that everyone's provided for, equality, all those sorts of things? And there's just other considerations that the patriarch tends to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that, but it's a tough subject for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Because they and what you said there was very, I think, key is not ripping the family apart, right? Because you don't want to have it, most parents don't want to have their kids fighting afterwards about stuff, right? And the way things happen. And unfortunately, it happens very frequently. That, and particularly when there's no living will or directive on healthcare proxies and things like that, where if one of the parents goes in the hospital, all of a sudden the kids are at each other's throat about how to take care of mom or dad.
Yeah, and there's a lot, in my experience, there's a lot of fighting by proxy. So they might be fighting about how do we sell the family home, how do we deal with these stocks and bonds. But a lot of times it's the friction and the disagreements that happened back in 1985. They just happen to now be bubbling to the surface about the medium of money. A lot of what I deal with is, okay, is this really worth the energy? Is this really worth the emotional toll that it takes to really fight this out in a legal way? Or is it more important to say, you know what? I might not be getting every penny that I'm entitled to. My brother probably isn't the best trustee in the world, but I care about my brother and I want to have a relationship with him and be able to have Christmas and Thanksgiving and go to graduation parties and do all the things that were more important to mom and dad than what was in their IRA.
Yeah. And again, when I, look at my family, it was, my dad was a firm believer it was 50-50. Even splits, whatever happens, but you're going to be treated the same. Fortunately, I was able to convince my mom to do that as well, because she had some challenges with my brother and wanted to do some other things. And I was like, no, Mom, you got to make them equal. But that's when we put his money into a trust so that she could control it a little bit, and still maintain a little bit of equality.
I had a really fascinating conversation with a client this morning. She has 5 sons. 5? Yep. And
sons, no daughters.
No daughters. And she...
How many grandkids?
We didn't really get into that. So definitely an old school mentality is the grandkids don't get anything. I often will bring it up. Are we doing it actually at every consultation? Or do you want to leave anything for grandkids? And definitely the old school view is nope, nothing. Or at most it's kind of a token amount just to make the kids happy. Conversation this morning was interesting. She had property in Florida, New Hampshire, and in Massachusetts, but there wasn't enough property for everyone to get a piece, and there wasn't enough equality between the values of all these properties. So how do you deal with unequal properties? How do you make things equal? It was a pretty fascinating conversation, but every time they would come back to these things have to be pretty much equal for me to be happy. Which is a pretty common thing that I see in a lot of my conversations.
And it's challenging, right? Because you've got sometimes, like you said, an odd number of things for an even number of people or whatever. I know I have some cousins, they had a cottage down in Marshfield, and the way they solved it was put into a trust, and each one got an equal share, and then the next generation all split the equal shares equally, right? So if like one of the 3 has 3 kids, well, each one of them gets a third of the third. And then, if one of them has 1 kid, that one gets 100% of 1/3. So, they keep the third inside of each family. Because when they bought it, they bought it for like $5,000 in the 1960s.
Right.
With I think literally no roof on it. And then, it's now worth quite a bit more than that. And it's a lovely spot, a block from the beach. But they were wise enough to be able to take care of it and set it up in a way that all of them can make use of it every year. And it pays for itself with rentals. So there's very little, there's still, nothing's perfect, but for the most part, everything's taken care of nicely, and there's no fighting about the fact that it's set up the way it's set up.
Yeah, one of the cooler projects that I worked on was a family cottage. It was in Brant Rock, and I think it had been in the family for over 100 years.
So it's new.
Yeah, exactly. And they were actually at the point where they needed to make some pretty major upgrades to the property, a new roof, all the new shutters, all that sort of stuff. And they were trying to and the family, as families do, got much bigger over the years. And
Right.
so they were buying out shares, and we were trying to figure out who's going to be involved, who has a right to stay there, how are we going to finance all this stuff. Really fascinating, this family dynamics. There's different, there's different people some are far away. They live in New Jersey. Some people live in Marshfield. It's just a lot of variables, and it's kind of like doing a puzzle. And you got to find all the pieces so they fit together. It's pretty gratifying when you get it right.
Yeah, and hence the name of my radio show here is the Financial Puzzle Pieces.
That's right.
Because it is just one big, ever-changing puzzle as well, right? Because circumstances change, health changes. Somebody unfortunately passes away younger than they were expected to. Divorce happens. Things just, as you said earlier, life gets messy. And getting a little bit of organization to that chaos, I think, is just critical. And I know that, and I don't think we've talked about this one yet, or this part of it, but when someone gets all their affairs in order, there's a little bit of peace that comes to them.
Huge amount of peace.
I was underselling that. I was hoping you said, you caught the underselling of that.
Yep.
And commented on it, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I've had many experiences where I've had clients that they sign and you can see a physical weight lifted from them. It's really amazing. You can see it in their posture. A lot of times people sign and they're happy. They're like, we're going to go out to lunch and celebrate. We've hit this milestone. We don't have to worry about this. And a lot of what I do is removing worry from people's lives. Very satisfying when somebody says, I know that I have a plan, that my kids are going to be happy, they're protected. It really is meaningful to me because these are people that we're helping. I'm sure you deal with the same thing in your business. These are people. It's not widgets. It's not these random inanimate objects. It's where I'm having a direct impact on people's families and happiness. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And again, as a financial advisor, people think that the money is like what gets me excited. The money's the easy part. Right, I just pick asset classes and funds or ETFs to be put in those asset classes for the most part. If people want to talk about life insurance, I'll talk about life insurance and I'll help them with that. But the real satisfaction comes when you significantly change someone's life. Like I have one client, I met him. He had just gone from making, He'd almost doubled his salary overnight.
Nice. And
he was in his 30s, and he's like, I want to start saving for retirement now. I said, great. Got him some life insurance because he had a kid. And then he's like, all right, let's start saving for retirement. I said, stop. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm not going to let you save for retirement. He looked at me like I had 7 heads. It's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a emergency fund. And you've got to have $10,000 in the bank before I let you invest. And he was like, well, why? I said, well, because if something goes wrong with this new career and you have to take money out of your retirement account, you get hit with a 10% penalty. He's like, oh. I'm like, yeah, like that's not good. So
and it's taxable.
Right. So I'm like, look, just wait. So we met like a year later. He had saved, guess how much he had saved in a year?
I don't know, $10,000?
17.
Wow.
Yeah. He hunkered down and he saved 17 grand and he was like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay, great. And then he wrote a check to himself for his IRA. It was like November or October. So he did like 5 grand because, average for the year. And then he was going to start putting $500 a month away, which he's still done since then. And his hand was literally shaking because it was one of the biggest checks he'd ever written. And I'm like, stop shaking. You're writing this to your future self. And he goes, oh, yeah, right, I am. But the best part was he's on the job 2 or 3 later, and he's now at a point where he doesn't worry about money anymore because he learned that, I don't have to spend every penny that I make. It's okay to have some money in the bank. and he's still got a nice cushion there, and he's saved a lot of money for retirement in a couple of years, more than most, considering what he makes, and he's got a new life. And the other part of it too is he's going to teach his kid how to save money as well, and be putting money aside, as opposed to a lot of people in today's society that just spend every nickel they make. But that was one of my favorite clients to work with, because I can literally see that I changed his life. I didn't just, improve his investment portfolio. I taught him the proper way to do things.
You changed his family's life. So if he's able to teach his kids that valuable skill, that's amazing.
Yeah. People talk about generational wealth. Sometimes being able to manage your money is more important than having a lot of money in the bank that you can leave to your next generation.
Well, what's the old saying? It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep.
Yep. I love that phrase. But we're getting close to the bottom of the half hour here. The phone number here, if you want to harass Ben or I, or the other Ben.
Always an option.
781-834-9639. Here on WMEX, 1510 AM Boston, 101.1 FM Quincy, and WMEXBoston.com. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now and listen to a couple of our sponsors. Are you fit to retire? I'm Chris Shea, financial advisor at BPS Financial Services in Marshfield. I work with clients to create a 100-day plan that can help get you started so that you can get the most out of your retirement. You've worked your whole life towards your goal of retirement. Let BPS Financial Services put together a plan that will help you enjoy your retirement. Find out how a 100-day plan tailored to you can help you get started in your retirement at fit2retire.com/Chris-Shea or call 781-733-5996. That's 781-733-5996. And now for my fast red disclosure, as this has been compliance approved.
Chris Shea is a registered representative offering securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Located at 752 Ocean Street, Marshfield, Massachusetts, 02050.
Hi, my name is Kyle, and I'm one of the owners of Austin Insurance Agency. Let's be real, your insurance premiums have skyrocketed since the pandemic, and many families are having a hard time finding affordable coverage. We have access to over 50 insurance carriers at our 2 convenient locations. One's in Hingham, near Derby Street Shopping Mall, and another is in Whitman on Route 18. We are a third-generation insurance agency, and since 1964, we have helped thousands of families find an affordable solution. It costs you nothing for us to review your policy, but it might if you don't. Austin Insurance Agency. Our family protecting yours. Contact us at 781-447-5561. Also online at austininsurance.com.
Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, don't waste time sifting through countless mortgage options. At MBA Mortgage, our licensed loan officers do the work for you. We shop the best rates from top lenders and tailor a mortgage solution just for you. Trust the experts at MBA Mortgage and call Matt Scott at 781-849-1118 or visit our website at www.mbamortgageteam.com. Your home, your future, your choice. MBA Mortgage has mastered the business of mortgages. And don't forget to check me out on Tuesdays during Chris Shea's Financial Puzzle Plan at 6 o'clock on WMEX.
Hey, welcome back. Nice to hear from a couple of our other guests. You'll hear Matt Scott next week talking about mortgages and potential reverse mortgages. And then the end of the month, you'll hear from Kyle as we talk about insurance. So much fun thing to talk about between Christmas and New Year's. But it is the holiday season, and one of the things that I know happens around the holiday season is you get together with your loved ones, and you talk about stuff. And then, once you get done talking about, the latest and greatest kid or grandkids party or their schoolwork or their basketball team or their hockey team or the play or the ballet or whatever's going on, there's there can be a lull in the conversation. And I know for a lot of people, sometimes, again, as you mentioned earlier, Ben, sometimes people are out of town and they're not close to their parents and they come back for the holidays. And I know that this can be a time to take advantage of that and actually potentially have a decent conversation about what the estate looks like. But it can also be a very tough one to bring up. Do you have any recommendations on how to potentially broach the topic with a loved one that may not necessarily be too enthused to talk about the end of life scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple layers to this question.
I like layers. I'm an ogre. That's a Shrek reference, all of you out there that don't know.
Yep. So at a very superficial level, estate planning deals with stuff. So what are we going to do with all the stuff? So the topic can come up as simply as, hey, Ma, I've really always loved this grandfather clock that's been in the hallway. Do you think I could have this someday? And that's pretty innocuous. People actually kind of like that. It's, oh, this is something that I had that people want. That's a nice icebreaker to kind of bring up the situation. Now, you kind of want to be judicious with it. You don't want to go, can I have this, and this?
Oh, come on. Everybody likes a greedy kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when there's 5 of them, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I think at a deeper level, I think what we were talking about before, how do you put family first? How do you maintain relationships? So in terms of stuff, I think one of the cool things to talk about is, hey, I want to make sure that my brother and I are able to enjoy this thing together. Is this something you would leave both of us so that we could share, for instance, the Cape House? Can we have it together? I'd love to share it with them and vacation with them and stuff like that. I can't imagine anything more than a parent would love to hear than their kids want to be friends and hang out together. But sometimes that's not in the cards. Sometimes you don't want to necessarily own these things together. And I think the opposite, or the kind of the inverse of this is, hey, Mom, I know Jimmy's always liked the Cape House. If you want to leave that to him because that's more important to him, that's okay with me. And I think not necessarily that they need your permission, but sometimes they do.
Well, it gives them guidance. Yeah. It's not permission, it's guidance.
Right. And it kind of gives them the emotional space to say, it doesn't have to be even. It has to be
equitable.
Yeah, equitable. That's a good way to put it. And it doesn't have to be down to the dollar. It doesn't mean, oh, well, we have to take an appraisal of the Cape House and we have to move money. No, it's just, it's okay. What you decide is fine. We're going to be okay. This stuff isn't important to me.
Yeah.
My favorite experience, and this happens sometimes, not as often as I'd like, I'll have a client come in, they'll bring an adult child, and the parent will turn to the child and say, what should I do with this? And the kid says, I don't care. I don't need any of your stuff. Or I could care less. I just want you to be happy. That warms my heart at a very deep level. And I think that is something that you can really convey to loved ones over the holidays. And I mean, what's more Christmas spirit or Hanukkah spirit than I don't care about this material stuff. I just want my fellow man or fellow woman to be happy. And I think that's a good kind of icebreaker. You can get into the details if you want. I wouldn't necessarily go in there saying, I want this. This is fair. You can't give that to Jimmy. This would be horrible. I can't believe it. You ruined my life. Probably not that. But there's a lot of different ways you can go about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about the next generation and looking at it as stuff. Because my mom, she had 6 30-yard dumpsters of stuff that we threw away because she just couldn't let go of any of it. And for better or for worse, some of it was stuff that my dad had when he had passed away 4 years before. And like, again, you can't see me on the radio, but I'm 5'9", 190 pounds. My dad was 6'1", 300 pounds. And my mom kept trying to peddle me his shirts. Yeah. Number one, I'm not that tall, so the sleeves were over the end of my hand, and I'm not that long, and I'm not like, they just didn't fit in any way, shape, or form.
You probably look like the kid trying on his dad's clothes in elementary school.
Oh yeah, I mean it was. I'm looking at it going, yeah, this isn't gonna work. But she kept them around because for her they represented him, whereas for me, my memories of my dad are, and again, this is the holiday season, so my dad was Santa Claus on the South Shore. He did Santa Claus for the Hanover Mall Parade for years. He did the Cardinal Cushing School. There's a picture of my dad hanging out of a helicopter going to the Cardinal Cushing School with Massachusetts State Police. Like, I associate Santa Claus and my dad with Santa Claus and Christmas time because they were inseparable for me. I mean, we get phone calls every year when they used to do it of my dad being on like TV 38 and TV 56, and the phone would just start ringing off the hook when they interviewed Santa about how the Bruins or Patriots were going to do, because the kids went up to the facility at either the Garden or down at Foxborough, and the players would interact with them, and Santa would be asked about how the Bruins season was going to go, and there'd be my dad, and the phone would just start ringing off the hook, and we'd answer the phone as I hold the phone up to my ear, and you'd again, this is back in the day. This is like the 1980s and 90s, so in early 2000s. So there wasn't a lot of cell phones. You'd hold the button down on the phone, and before you even put it down, it would ring, and you'd answer like, "Oh, you my dad was on TV, really?" And for half an hour, you just hit the button, and the phone would just continue to ring and ring and ring. But so the holidays were wonderful around that. But I did not associate my dad's shirts and my parents' stuff with that memory. That, I do have a couple pictures that I found, but I got most of them digitized now because I don't need to have a box of junk. I just want the memories of my parents and how we interacted, and that's what I want. I don't need the Chinaware that we never used to symbolize my parents and how much I loved them. Right. And miss them still. Right? Like I miss them. But having the china or the cabinet or whatever thing my parents thought was important, not important to me.
Right. Yeah, the things that I find most meaning in don't really have a lot of financial they're not really worth anything.
Somebody else.
Right. To me, they're worth a lot. So there's a snow globe my grandmother got me. Whenever I see it, I think about her. There's a painting that used to hang up in my grandparents' house. Whenever I see it, I think about them. So sometimes it's, pretty much all the time for me, and I think most people, the things that are meaningful aren't necessarily the gold doubloons and the priceless Renoir. It's the stuff.
You have one of those?
No, I don't. I mean, I'll take one, but I'm not a saint. It's just the stuff that I do have. It's not. It's just the stuff that makes you think about the memories and remember the people that aren't necessarily here anymore.
Yeah. No, my dad was one of 6. Again, a good Irish Catholic family from Boston. Mm-hmm. And my Nana made a ceramic Christmas tree with bulbs and it kind of lit up and all that sort of stuff. She made 6 of them, one for each kid. And I think there's maybe 3 left, maybe 2 or 3 left. I've got one of them. And I haven't pulled it out and put it up yet because the ceramic, the top kind of broke off a little bit. I got to find a way to glue that back on. But that's like one of the few things that I've kept because it's one of originally 6, who knows how many now. And, like I said, I've got to figure out a way to get the top attached. And actually, I might just take it out tonight and when I get home and put it up just for the heck of it because it's not going to get done it's not going to get done this December.
Right.
Might as well take it out and put it up. Now that I think about it, but it's one of those things that I want to keep because and if we put it on a yard sale, it'll be like $5-10 somebody pay for it. But for me, that's Nana. Like
Right.
that was made by one of my ancestors, and hopefully my daughter will appreciate it maybe a quarter as much as I do and maybe keep it. But my Nana died when I was in elementary school, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I forget exactly when it was. So like my memories of her are minimal. 0% chance my kid has any knowledge of who that is. She barely remembers my parents because my dad passed away when she was young and my mom passed away a couple of years ago. She's going to remember a little bit of them, but not nearly as much as I would like. But hopefully some of these stories and personal artifacts are what can keep her attached to our life.
Right. And one thing I would encourage people to do, I've had a couple clients that took a really purposeful view on having a legacy, not necessarily. Most people aren't going to have a library named after them. Most people
really,
at least not my clients, and certainly not myself. But there are clients of mine.
You never know. This WMEX thing is going to make you, super popular and launch your career.
That's true. I have had clients that are very purposeful, and they'll spend time to make videos where they're telling the family story, the family history. And I just think that is, for lack of a better term, the coolest thing. They're talking about where their family came from, how they emigrated from a different part of the world, the different stories that you're not going to see if you go to Ancestry.com. You
Right.
might see they came to Ellis Island at a certain time. They were living at a certain place. They had a profession, but you're not going to really understand, this person married this person, but it was because of this other situation. You're not going to get that. That's going to be lost to history. And so that I would encourage people, if you're sitting around and you're with some elders in your family this holiday season, ask them some questions about when they were younger and just take out your phone and start recording. Don't do a secret recording. That's actually against the law in Massachusetts. But I mean, there's really some value in preserving some of this family history that otherwise is just forgotten.
Yeah, no, again, talk about my parents. They lived in Marshall before I was born. Then they moved to Hanover because the house that they had was getting sold out from underneath them. And they weren't even given the option to buy it. Otherwise, I would have probably grown up in Marshall instead of Hanover. And life would have been completely different. But they had one of those old reel-to-reel Super 8 movies that they had filmed when they were like on Duxbury Beach, doing all this stuff. And again, back in the 60s when it was made, silent movies, right? There was no sound to it.
Right.
Right. So my dad, sometime in the 90s, 2000s, who knows exactly when it was, sat down, he pulled out all of the sold Super 8s, the reel-to-reel, hooked them up, projected them on a wall, and recorded them with a video camera. And did a play-by-play.
That's awesome.
Right? So here's this
It's
video.
the director's cut.
Yes. So here he is, and we got. I found it when I was cleaning up my mom's house at one point in time. I found all these old things, and I got them converted from VHS to digital, and a few $1,000s because of just there were a lot of slides in there too. But got it all done, and it was after my father had passed away we found all this stuff. Well, right on my dad's birthday is when I got all the stuff back. So I brought the tape, the DVD of my father doing the playover to my mom hanging out on my dad's birthday. And there was my dad talking to my mom and everybody about what had happened back in the 1960s. And the tears that welled up in her eyes and mine. We were balls of tears, and I miss Dad, I miss my husband. But it's a gift. It's an absolute gift to have that because, I think today a lot of people take for granted the fact that we have so many videos. But for people of a certain age, and I'm 51 years old. I didn't grow up with video. I mean, we had VHS tapes, but most of them have been destroyed by now, right? Digital is the way to go. And if you haven't digitized it, it doesn't exist. I mean, even now, try and find a DVD player.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I actually have an old computer that is barely usable. The only reason I keep it is because it's got a DVD on it that if I need to, I can plug it in and connect it via HDMI cable to a TV and play it.
Right.
If I absolutely need to.
So in high school, I was really enjoyed AV. And so
audio visual, for those of you who don't know what AV is.
Yep. So I was working with my dad on a project. So my grandfather, he was the organist at St. Pat's in Nashua, New Hampshire. So he would play the organ at Sunday Mass, Christmas, all the funerals. He was the guy. And it was this beautiful pipe organ, the kind you'd imagine in the back of a really big old church. And
so he was terrible at it.
Yeah. And so we said, hey, we really need to record you playing your organ and playing the piano and doing the things that you really enjoy doing. So we mic'd up the church and we recorded him playing some of the most amazing organ music that you can imagine, toccata and fugue and D minor, all these kind of really famous songs. And so we recorded it, put it on a CD, and we had a bunch of CDs printed with his picture, and it was really cool. And when he passed away, we were able to play that CD at his funeral. It was
pretty cool.
It was it gave me goosebumps. It was really pretty amazing. His kids were all really touched by it. It was, but it's one of those things that if you don't actively try and preserve those memories, they're just going to go away. Because I've heard him play the organ, but my kids weren't even alive when he was alive. There's no way that they would remember it.
No.
But now they have an opportunity to hear it. It's
whether or not they care about it is another issue.
Well, that's true.
But at least you can say that you put forth the effort.
Right. And it's we really live in a great time in history, because no other time in history could you do that.
No.
For the majority of human history, people couldn't take pictures. They couldn't record audio. They can't record video. Whatever they could write down, that's it. And most people couldn't read and write. We have it pretty good.
Yeah, the information super age.
That's right.
For all, and again, we live in the Boston area. Lots of first world problems, right? We're not, for the most part, starving. For the most part, most people have shelter of some sort. There are exceptions. I get that. I'm not unaware that there are people that are struggling, but for the most part, there's a good portion of people that we come in contact with. The challenges are minor in the grand scheme of life. Again, my daughter's sick. I went to CVS before we came here. We had put in an order for her medicine at like 2:45. They sent in the order. At 5:10 when I went to pick it up, it wasn't ready yet. A little bit before 6, I got the text message, it's finally ready. Like, okay, a couple hours later than I wanted it, we finally get the antibiotics for my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest personal adversity today was I had an Amazon delivery delayed by 2 hours.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah. But again, right, like when you're trying to do things like, again, holidays, setting it up for kids and grandkids and things like that, timing on things can seem like the biggest thing in the world at the moment until you step back and like, okay, we've got bigger fish to fry, for lack of a better phrase, than to worry about kind of this being the end all be all of whatever catastrophe is going on, right? And that gets, I guess, a little bit of that gets back to the estate planning, right? Like, you want to take the problems that come around when someone passes away and minimize them, right? Instead of having a lot of fighting, you're going to be like, look, it's all taken care of. You're going to have, and again, talked about this last time you were on, but my brother contested the will for a year. It's still the estate's still not done. Almost 3 years later, just because of taxes and filings and not getting paperwork. And is it the end of the world? No. Is it a pain in the neck? Yes, it's a pain in the neck. I'm not gonna lie. It's annoying that the estate hasn't been finished. But if I need something, it's a phone call away. Like, I'm just in this state of wait, which sucks, but it's, again, it's a first world problem because we had the estate handled. 98% of it was all taken care of. It's just timing now.
That's right. So even if you plan, it has to be comprehensive. It's not enough to do the minimum. We need to make sure you have a plan for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and believe me, I know my mom's annoyed about the fact that I talk so much about my family because she was very private about these things. But I think that it's important that people realize that even when a life looks like it's fantastic on the outside, we've all got problems, right? Like if you think that, again, you talked at the beginning about oh my God, I'm sorry, it's such a mess. Everybody's got a mess, right? I talk to my clients about their money and they're like, oh, I don't know where things are. I'm like, well, okay, that's the reason why we're talking, is to organize all this. I got a call from a client right before this. They changed jobs, and we talked about a month ago, and he's like, okay, I'll start the rollover process and get my old 401k into a new thing. And I was like, okay, great. Talked to him today. He's like, yeah, I haven't started. I'll tap it up for the New Year's. I'm like, okay, just as long as you remember it, I'll contact you after New Year's. I'm not going to push you to get it done now because I know that it's the holiday season, and you've got stuff going on. Right. We've all got stuff going on.
Yeah. When we're done signing a trust, I say, congratulations, you're not done. We have to make sure things go into that trust in order to get the full benefit of the thing that you just invested the time and money into preparing. And people immediately turn ghost white and they say, oh, I have homework. I haven't had homework since I was in high school or college. And I say, it's okay. There's no deadline. If you're done within 6 months, I think you're doing a good job. You're probably above average. If it takes you 9 months, that's okay. If we have to talk in a year and we finalize the last thing, that's okay too. So it's not one of those things where you have to be perfect right away.
Oh, and by the way, you're not going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Because life changes, right? And we talk about, unfortunately we hit upon this now with about 5 minutes left in the show. But blended families happen, right? All of a sudden, one of your children decides to get a divorce. How do you rewrite the estate plan for that?
Right.
And guess what? You kind of do in order for it to happen the way you want it.
Right.
Per stirpes is a wonderful phrase.
That is true. And there are some strategies that we use to protect that beneficiary share of the estate. So a lot of my job as a teacher or as being a teacher. And so I'll tell my clients, there are strategies we can employ that are very easy to implement. All you have to remember is big life change. Somebody's getting a divorce, somebody dies, major medical diagnosis, large inheritance, those big things. Give me a call, and within 5 minutes, we'll come up with a plan where we can at least take some action to mitigate this risk.
Or, on the other hand, choose to not take action.
That's true.
But at least contact someone and ask the question of, what do I do? Like I have a client that they're in their 70s, and just turned 70. And starting to think about the estate planning and things like that. And, they talked about putting money in a trust, and with their circumstances, I was like, probably not needed. But, if they had, $1 million plus, you start to think about a trust, or $500,000. It depends upon how much they're going to draw down and things like that. And there's a lot of things that you want to talk to an estate planner about to make the best choice, because there's no right or wrong answer in general.
That is definitely true. One of the things that I have to remind most of my clients is we don't live in a black and white world. We live in shades of gray. So as a general rule, if you have real estate, trust usually makes sense. If you have probate assets that aren't going to have a beneficiary designation or a transfer on death designation, that means an asset where when you pass away by operation of law, it will automatically go to designated beneficiaries.
Think of an IRA or 401k.
Exactly. If you have assets that don't fall into that category, trusts are a great tool, but that's all a trust is. It's a tool. It's not something that every person needs. It's for the person with a particular situation. It can be a tool to achieve a result, to stay out of probate court, protect a beneficiary, do things that you otherwise couldn't do without it. And part of our job, I'm sure your job is the same way. You're taking the different tools and you're saying, how can we get this legal effect to help the person, or a financial effect, whatever you want to say, help the person in a way that looks at the whole.
Yeah.
How do we put this puzzle together?
Yep. Yeah, no. People will say, what do you think about this financial product? And one of the things that comes up invariably is like an annuity. Mm-hmm. And I say, it's a great tool if used properly. And they look at me like I have 5 heads, and they're like, well, we hear these bad things. I'm like, those are all factually correct, and I don't say whether they're good or bad. But if you need a guaranteed set of income, and that's what your goal is, not to lose out on anything, annuity's perfect. If that's not your goal, then an annuity is terrible. I don't care how much it costs or doesn't cost. It's all dependent upon what's in your best interest. Speaking of best interest, this has been a quick hour, and we will be back. Ben will be back in the... I don't know if you're Ben number 1 or number 2. I'm not sure how this works.
Oh, I'm definitely number 2.
My hubris isn't that bad. Go ahead and take primary role in this one.
Ben Cote will be back next year in January to hopefully field some questions out there as you got. Hopefully, you've had some time over the new year, to the holiday season, to maybe have some of these conversations and have some questions. And we'll be around, but. I'll be back next week with the other Ben. And hopefully everyone has a wonderful remainder of the Hanukkah season if you celebrate that. And if not, whatever other holidays you celebrate, enjoy and be safe. And that's it for tonight.
Happy holidays, everyone.
WMEX Quincy, Boston. Streaming at WMEXBoston.com. And on your smart speaker, just say play WMEX.
The greatest hits of all time are back. This is the all-new WMEX.
WMEX Boston.